This video is about using the long division algorithm. Using that algorithm to divide. DMSBR. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. Remember that an algorithm is a step-by-step procedure to do something. There is your step-by-step procedure. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. Let's see that in action. The purpose of division is to determine how many times the divisor fits into the dividend. Division is the inverse or the opposite operation of multiplication. Let's take a look at that vocabulary a little bit more. In the problem, 24 divided by 4 equals 6. 24 is the dividend, 4 is the divisor, and 6 is the quotient. Let's take a look at what that looks like in a standard division problem. 35 is the dividend, 7 is the divisor, and 5 is the quotient. We also have a division symbol and an equal sign thrown in. Let's see the long division algorithm in practice. The problem is 75 divided by 3. 75 is the dividend, and 3 is the divisor. So the algorithm says we divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and repeat. Let's start the process. First, we divide. Ask yourself, how many times does 3 go into 7? Well, 3 goes into 7 2 times. There'll be some extras, but we're going to see what happens to those. So 3 goes into 7 2 times, and the 2 goes above the 7. Then we say 3 times 2. That's the multiplication part. 2 times 3 is 6. So 6 goes below the 7. The next step in the algorithm is subtract. We then write the subtraction sign and put a little line to help us get organized. And we bring down the 1. Notice that all of the numbers are lined up very carefully and everything is neat so as to make sure everything is in the right place. The next step in the algorithm is to bring down. So we bring the 5 down. And now we want to know, now we repeat the process because we want to know how many times 3 goes into 15. 3 goes into 15 5 times, and 5 times 3 is 15. Then we subtract, and we get a remainder of 0. Nothing left. Now we know we're finished with this problem because there are no more digits in the dividend, and our remainder is 0. So we know that 3 goes into 75 25 times. You can use multiplication to undo or check your answer. Multiply the quotient, the answer you got, by the divisor, and you should get the dividend. So 25, which was the quotient that we received, times 3, which was the divisor, will equal 75, which was our original dividend. And now we know we made a correct answer. Remember to keep things neat so that your numbers stay lined up as you work. Here's a quick review of the long division algorithm. DMSBR. A quick way to remember that is daddy, mommy, sister, brother, repeat. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. All right, guys, now we're going to do some long division practice problems. Remember, the algorithm is daddy, mommy, sister, brother, repeat. So that is division, multiplication, subtraction, bring down, and repeat. Let's see how that works in each of these problems. I want you to notice that the first 4 problems have little grids in them. It's just a reminder that you have to be really neat and organized when you do your division problems, and these first 4 problems are set up to help remind you of that. Also, I want you to understand that these are meant to be your practice problems. So please pause the video before each problem, copy down the problem exactly as it's written on the paper, and then try it yourself before you watch the video to see how it's done. Let's start with number 1. So remember, we always start with the first division. Divide first. 4 goes into 6 1 time. Multiply. 1 times 4 is 4. Then we subtract. So that's a 2. And then we bring down the next number in the next digit in the number in the dividend. And then we repeat it. So we're going to divide now. 4 goes into 28 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. And when I subtract, I get a 0. So the final answer here is 17. Notice that I put it in a neat little box. It's a great way to organize your information and make it really easy for the teacher, if I'm grading a paper copy, to see exactly what your final answer is. All right, remember to pause the video between questions. Make sure you've copied down question number 2, and we will continue. In question number 2, we start with divide. 2 goes into 3 one time. 1 times 2 is 2. Then I subtract, and then I bring down. 2 goes into 18 9 times. 2 times 9 is 18. Then I subtract, and I'm at a remainder of 0. Notice that all of these problems will end in a 0 because we are doing the basic long division algorithm. We will also have a video that will show you what to do when you don't get a 0 remainder, when you actually have some pieces left over. Remember that your final answer should be written out to the side and boxed in so it's very clear as to what your final answer is. Question number 3. Now instead of looking at a 1-digit divisor, we're looking at a 2-digit divisor. Doesn't matter, we can do the same thing. But I do want you to notice that 11 cannot go into 4. If I only have 4 things, I can't make a group of 11. So we put a 0 up above the 4. It reminds us that to line up our numbers, and it reminds us that 11 doesn't go into 4. So instead of looking at 4, we now need to look at 46. 11 goes into 46 4 times, and 4 times 11 is 44. When I subtract, I get a 2, and then I bring down the next number. And then 11 goes into 29 2 times. 2 times 11 is 22. When I subtract, I get a 7. Then then we have to bring down the 7. Then 11 goes into 77 7 times, and 7 times 11 is 77. That gives us a remainder of 0. Now notice that there's a 0 in the front here. When I write my final answer, I don't include any zeros that happen before the rest of the numbers. So my final answer will be 427. Okay, now let's try question number 4. Remember to pause the video to copy the problem. 7 goes into 9 one time. 1 times 7 is 7. When I subtract, I get a 2. Then I bring down the next number. And 7 goes into 28 4 times. 4 times 7 is 28. When I subtract, I get a 0. And my final answer is 14. Now the next set of questions do not have all those grids, but you're going to see that I'm going to make it just as neat as I did when I had the little boxes. Remember to pause your video and copy the problem. Question number 5. 9 does not go into 6. If I only have 6 things, I cannot make a group of 9, so I'm going to put a 0 up here to remind me about that and to make sure that my numbers line up. So now I'm looking at the number 68. There are 7 nines in 68 because 7 times 9 is 63. When I subtract, I get a 5. And notice how everything is lined up just as it was when I had the grids. Next, I bring down, and 9 goes into 54 6 times. When I subtract, I get a 0. Now you might think you're finished here because you got a 0. But we're not done because every number in the dividend needs to be brought down before we can call this problem finished. So we follow the same protocol. We bring down the 0, and 5 goes into 0 0 times, and 0 times 9 is 0, and when I subtract, now I get my final remainder. Notice that every number that comes down must have a number that goes up in its place. It's very important to remember that. Now again, remember, we don't need to write this 0 because it happens before my number. So my final answer will be 760. Okay. Question number 6. Remember to copy it down and try it on your own before you come and watch me do it. 4 goes into 4 once. 1 times 4 is 4. I subtract, I get a 0. Bring down the 4. 4 goes into 4 once. 4 times 1 is 4. When I subtract, I get a 0. Bring down the next number. 4 goes into 5 once, and 1 times 4 is 4. When I subtract, I get a 1. And I bring down the 6. 4 goes into 16 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. When I subtract, I get my 0 remainder. So the final answer here is 1,114. Question number 7. Remember to pause and copy. 15 does not go into 1, so I'm going to put my little 0 placeholder. 15 goes into 15 one time. 1 times 15 is 15. When I subtract, I get a 0. Bring down a 7. 15 does not go into 7, so it goes in 0 times. 0 times 15 is 0. When I subtract, I still get 7, but now I get to bring down the 5. 15 goes into 75 5 times. 5 times 15 is 75. When I subtract, I get a 0. Remember, we don't include the zeros that happened before our number in our final answer, so the final answer is 105. And the last problem in this set, number 8, remember to pause and try it on your own before you watch me do it. 25 does not go into 2, so we put a 0 there. 25 goes into 25 one time. When I subtract, I get a 0. I bring down the 7. 25 does not go into 7, so it's 0 times. 0 times 25 is 0. When I subtract, I get a 7. Bring down the last digit. 25 goes into 75. These are money numbers. You guys should know this. This represents 1 quarter. This represents 3 quarters. So there's 3 25s in 75. And 3 times 25 is 75. When I subtract, I get a 0. So my final answer, remember we don't need this extra 0 in the front, is 103. That's how you do long division.